happens without much fanfare. So, if everything worked, we should be live. Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Everything Outside Code, where I talk to a fantastic creator, founder, GTM expert about the hard parts of building a product, which I frankly think is going to market. I hope my internet isn't choppy today because I'm currently on the road and traveling, but I have to make these happen. And I'm excited to have Ondřej on the call today, on the stream. Thanks for coming on, Ondřej.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Super amazing. Your setup is immaculate. Yeah, it makes
Thank you very much. Spend a lot
this
of time on this. It's
makes
still in progress as everything is, but thanks for that. Yeah, it's good to see the compliments.
yeah, that's great, man. Um, so yeah, we could just kick things right off. We're going to be talking about developer experience. Andrea's worked in developer advocacy for a really long time. Comes with a wealth of experience. And we know with AI, developer experience is evolving. I was just talking to Andrea about the fact that I was at the meetup in San Francisco last night, and I heard Matt Dillman, the CEO of Netlify, talk about agent experience and how he was thinking about it early last year before before anyone picked up on it, and he wrote a blog about it. I thought it was pretty fascinating as sort of like the next step as we build forward agents. So, but before we get into that future, let's throw it back a bit. Um, could you tell us a bit about yourself, Andrea, and how you got to the stream? I mean, not how you got into the stream, but how
Sure.
you got to become developer advocate.
Definitely. So yeah, a little bit about me. Yeah, I already told this multiple times, so I will make it short and hopefully interesting. So I started not as a software developer, as most of the people in the developer advocacy started. I started as the QA, and I spent a lot of time doing automation because at the time it was the very freestyle, very vague times where nobody was using unit tests and everything. We were clicking through manually every Thursday the whole platform. It was very, very terrible a couple of first months. But then unit testing started, so I started to get more and more experience in that. And once I was much more confident in writing the tests and automated tests and code, I got to the software development, and then I touched a little bit of the open source, and I started to explore and find out that there is a field called developer advocacy and developer relations, and I slowly flew in, and yeah, for basically last decade, let's say, I was setting up developer relations in various companies. I started with content management systems, then moved for like 2 years to big data. And now I'm back to content and content creation with CK Editor, working as the developer advocate, as the individual contributor. So I got back from management track to the IC role itself.
Yeah,
And here I am. Yeah.
that's yeah. That's this is the first time I see someone from like in the developer advocacy sphere coming from QA. Most folks either come from marketing and then they learn
Yeah.
to code and then they transition to developer advocacy, or they are an engineer and they figured, oh, they could talk to people. So to become a developer advocate.
Yeah,
But from
I
QA,
kind of
that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I kind of became the QA just by accident because yeah, I thought it's just basically clicking through the web and listing the issues. So it was my part-time job, but then I found out it's actually much more broad and much more interesting as I thought at the beginning. So I stayed after the internship and just started to work full time on that.
Yeah, that's great. So when you said you built teams, advocacy teams, what exactly does that mean? How did you do it?
So usually when I started when I'm starting to set up the developer relations, you sit down. I was mostly the first person and the only person doing developer relations. I was hired to do that, and then you need to actually define what it means for this actual company, this actual product to implement developer relations. it is very different based on the type of product, type of audience that you're doing it. But you kind of, always touch at least 2 4 pillars that I'm using to help navigate through the landscape. It's developer enablement, developer advocacy, developer evangelism, and developer community. So these four, basically you decide in which one you want to invest, and once you decide, and I usually start with just one, you start to make it, let's say, much more described. You analyze what could help, how you can invest in that. And ideally, if the first, let's say, project that you basically start to do alone are successful, you can grow up the team and then expand the portfolio of what the developer relations team does. And that's what I did in 2 companies, basically.
That's amazing. Could you dive a bit deeper into how you pick one of these four? Because I've heard those terms used, interchangeably as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
So first of
it
all, you
almost
need to
feels like you could just pick one or the other.
Yeah, first of all, you need to decide in which department you are helping to, because you can either do developer relations in the development or R&D, research and development department, which you basically just
Hmm.
focusing on making the product directly better, right? So if you are trying to do this, you are actually working on the product. You are, I don't know, adjusting the API calls, adding the documentation to the API endpoints, trying to create SDKs, sample applications, starters, and these kind of things, which just basically implicitly help developers, right? If you are doing a good job. If you are doing it in the marketing, let's say sphere, it's more about getting the things that are already in the product or around the product, and you are trying to amplify it. So you are either starting creating starters that you are then sharing on the, let's say, fruitful communities. You are talking about them on the conferences. It's more of a evangelization of what is already there. So you are not directly expanding the product or making it better this way, but you are trying to connect the dots and basically provide information to the right audience. And the last one is sales and pre-sales. And this function is more about trying to showcase that the value of the product is there for the technical persona. So these are basically the three departments. And then, as I said, you have these 4 pillars, and you are just deciding in which one you want to invest. So just an example, if you are in marketing and you want to invest in developer evangelization, yeah, you 100% you're writing articles, creating videos, going to the webinars or podcasts like I am doing right now. But if you want to 100% invest in developer advocacy, you go to customers calls, you don't help them at all, but you're getting their ideas, then talking about the product itself, then you find the patterns and provide it back to company. Or the vice versa, you are going to the product teams and trying to give them the insights that what you learned from these customer calls, and tell them like, hey, nobody's using it like this, nobody's using Docker, everybody's using this and that, because yeah, it's easier and quicker or cheaper or whatever. And you are trying to basically connect the information and allow people to do that. So yeah, first the department, and the second the quadrant or like the aim of the first project that you are starting with. And later on, ideally, you will cover all of the spheres, ideally in all of the departments. This didn't happen for me. I was working only for one department for all of the companies, but I was able to expand to more than one of these quadrants.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks. Like I figured, also being as a developer advocate myself in the past, I figured that it felt like at some point I did one of these, right? Like one of each, and it kind of like responsibilities shifted over time. Right? You find out that at the start, as the product is, getting the product market fitness, there's rapid iteration. You're doing more of like the product specific bits, right? Getting feedback, that's the outcome you're looking at, is improving the product. And over time, that sort of shifts to evangelism, back to product, and then you move to like full scale. At some point, developer marketing, right? You'll be
Yeah.
more tactical about how this drives growth and how it drives like sales conversations, and what needs to be done. So it feels like a weight. There's a weighting that needs to be balanced over time, um, as the team grows.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it really depends in which phase the product and the company is in. Like you basically describe, if I got it correctly, the growth part when you are starting in a startup. But for example, when I started in like very big company, very enterprisey, not really investing in the open source itself. Yeah, we it was very different. I was surprised that we are not doing the things that used to do when we were working with the startups, with basically the same flow as you described. It was more about, okay, now we have this and that. Let's gather all of the information that we have all over the place and just put them in one place, and then we can show it to the people, and they won't be frustrated finding the right information. And it was, yeah, still I think it's DevRel, but a little bit different flavor, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And when you think about the developer experience, right, narrowing it down a bit, what comes to mind first?
Yeah, it very, and I was thinking about it like time wise. When I started, I thought the developer experience is just basically the structure of your API, because yeah, that's what I was only working with, and I didn't really was thinking about any documentation, some tutorials, guidelines, or whatever else. Only like you have the parameters of the functions, what types they are there, how they are described, how flexible it is, and that was it. Like very, very small and narrow focus. Then I realized that if you have the API, you are using it in various frameworks, right? So it went a little bit to this framework specific questions, and we started building SDKs. And once you have the SDK, you probably want to have some documentation. Every framework is using a little bit different standard for documentation. Again, still just the technical documentation, not anything businessy. And then you grow and you have more stacks, you have more coverage, and you have SDKs, but they are nice. But then you try to aim for the more business or use case based documentation, or use case based use cases. And you are aiming for starters, how to start with X on platform Z, right? And you just do these starters, and then you start to write blog posts and guidelines and guides about them. And I think all of this, if you compare or like pack it together, can contribute to the developer experience. And now, yeah, this is still, let's say, kind of the old flow that I was working on for a couple of years, where people just go to your website, your documentation, your GitHub. They are connecting the bits and pieces. If you are lucky, you have some unified place that they can search and find. But now people are not going this way, right? They are more of a chatting with AI, and they don't really care about your website, your SDKs, your types of documentation. They just want to ask the question that they have and get the results. Or they just ask, hey, what's the best editor? And yeah, that's it. They don't provide any more context, and they are just basically relying on the AI to ask around, or ask them to provide the context for them automatically, right?
Yeah, this future is interesting. Before we get into that future, because I'm very excited
Yeah.
to talk about it. I'm curious, with the current way for developer experience. It seems like this is
Mhm.
just making sure the product is great. There are abstractions built on top of the product in the way of SDKs, so that developers can use it. Writing great documentation so that it's easier to use these SDKs and just products, and then creating supporting content around that. So it felt like it was mostly split between product and enablement content. Would you say that's sort of like a summarized grouping of developer experience? And also, what does success look like currently when we think about when you think about developer experience? How do you go? Yes, we're doing a fantastic job with developer experience.
Yeah, I think it's very similar, like measuring developer relations. It hurts, and the answer is always it depends, right? But from what I'm really like from my personal experience, I'm always aiming for like time to hello world or time to actually
Hmm.
test it out, right? For example, in example of CK editor, and I was super glad when I was applying for a job. If you take a look around to the website documentation or many materials, you have real life demos. So as a user, not even the technical integrator that is like putting the editor into the application, just go there and you can try to, I don't know, write down the article or write down the paragraph of the article to get the look and feel without you needed to do anything. You don't need to log in, you don't need to subscribe, whatever, you just test it out. This is like the time to hello world for the content creators and content marketers is definitely it's very quick, it's almost instant. And then the time to hello world with let's say integrators or the developers, which are my secondary audience, or like primary, uh, basically the second group. They are equally important. Yeah, you can just go there, you npm install something, and you can directly run it, right? You can just subscribe for the trial. This is the only blockage. But again, with CK, it's good because you don't need to provide a credit card for the first 14 days. You just subscribe, and all your license keys are in place in the starter for 1 or 2 clicks in the wizard, and that's it, right? So this is something that I think it's very important in developer experience to get people to start with something, and then there is a second thing is how they will feel once they play with the playground and basically turn the levers and try to adjust it for their needs. And the second part, yeah, man, it's difficult. Like, it's very different for different product. It's very different for different personas. So then NPS score, like a thumbs up, then thumbs down. We see it in the AI chats, right? It can work if you are from the culture like I am from, like the Central Europe, where people are mostly sending out just negative sentiment. Because yeah, if they are happy with the product, they don't tell you anything, right? If they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's good, even if it's fabulous, they don't provide like the thumbs up. But if there is a slight issue, they will just give you the thumbs down, even though it's like some small thing. They will just say, hey, this small thing might be better, right? For example, if we are working in the North American market, it's very much different. North American market is like, yeah, everything is great, great, great. And if there is some issue, they're like, yeah, let's not submit it. It's very small. And if there is some negative sentiment over the product, you really need to start working on it. So very hard to measure. But yeah, from what I'm aiming to do, it's ideally to provide the flexible solution, and always have this generic core API or generic core fallback if there is some edge or niche that you can fall back to and basically do whatever you want, like your super admin playground, right?
Yeah. No, that's great. So what I hear is first was times integration. That seemed like an activation metric, right? At least
Yeah,
in product terms, that's where you put it. And I think rightly so, having that as like having that at the core, um, that's great. So having a successful developer experience be around are people using this and how fast are they using it? Because marketing can always own the acquisition metric, right? They send folks to the product anyway. It's up to
yeah,
developer experience to inform them and convert them, get them to use the product as quickly as possible, and then the NPS paid as happily as possible, right? So at the end of the day, they're satisfied with the experience on the platform. Um, that's great. Thanks. So let's go to the new way, right? how do you envision developer experience moving forward? You talked about how these days developers don't need to read the docs, right? They don't need to look at it directly. The blog posts and the content. So the way we used to do things before, like two key components of those are like removed. And you just have the product, developers inspect, and then the agents do everything else. So how do you see developer experience morphing into what we're starting to call agent experience?
I hope that my goal or like my aim fits the real scenarios, but I still think that the AI agents are just another channel, right? Before we were just aiming to different personas going through the, let's say, organic channel, and AI can help you with these organic ones somehow, and then you have completely new channel for AI engines. And I'm trying to distinguish these two because, first of all, if you are still trying to serve your customers and you want to help them with AI, yeah, just create the rack or just index your documentation and provide the AI search, not just the the full text search that you had there before. And there are multiple examples like that that will enhance the, let's say, channel of the organic search, or basically people going through the actual website or actual resources. And the second one, yeah, agents, it's very shifty. I did find a couple of general standards. I know MCP is more already like kind of set in stone, but it's not. There is no consortium to oversee it, define it, version it, and so on and so forth. It's still very, let's say, fluid. And yeah, if you take a look, for example, to the web standards, how the HTML is being rendered in the browser, it took ages. And we are still fighting a couple of browser issues if you are implementing your application and you would like to have it rendered properly on all of the supported channels, right, or supported browsers. And I think it's very similar situation right now in AI and providing the, let's say, AI tailored content, because you can do many things. Like you have llms.txt, you have these llms fulls, which are basically just the markdown files, but there is no structure behind it, and you don't really know what to put in there, and you don't know how to, for example, mark the semantics and so on and so forth. So I'm super into providing this information. Ideally have them in the same quality as you have them for the humans, but the structure, the semantics, and or the standards are still pretty fluid. And second thing is they are different standards in between vendors, because you can have I'm using Cloud Code mostly, so in my all of my sample repositories you will see the cloud.md, right, and you have basically description what's in there. If you are using anything else, you will have the different file, mostly in Markdown, because now it's kind of the standard to have them in Markdown. Some repositories or some providers are searching for the .agents folder with a different, very different structure. So it's super hard to have it unified for everybody. So for me, I still aim to be a little bit of old school at the beginning and have a really good README of your repository, for example, and a very good documentation, and have a good structure with all of the semantics. And if you did it correctly, and for these you already have the standards, I think it will
Yeah,
be very easy to transform them then to the, let's say, agents first structures like LLM full or LLM TXT.
yeah. Thanks. I had a similar question as well last night at this interesting meetup I was at the
Tell me.
Mox HQ office here in SF. And my question to Math Billman was, if we're going to build a standard for agent experience, because I'm confused myself, right? We have the traditional docs, we have MCPs, we have skills, we have LLMs, TXT, and then we have a host of other files, agents and MD, Claude, the MD, and probably there's going to be one next week, right?
Yeah.
Around how we need to give agents, we need to empower agents, right? Some may say that it's impossible to have a standard, but I feel like for us to achieve interoperability, that would eventually drive growth. Because once we have like seamless integrations, the same way we had REST APIs, right? I felt like that accelerated a lot of things. We all agreed to a standard and then we moved forward. But some folks say it's impossible to have a standard. I'm still waiting for someone to make a case for it. But Matt said something that I really liked, which was that if someone was going to think about a standard, there are four premises, or at least four categories within which you would think about agent experience. And one is authentication. The second is context. Right? So every agent needs access, right? Um, the second is context. We see a lot of like MCPs, skills, LLMs, or TXT. They all fall in within this category of try to give the agent context so he has a great experience. Um, and then the third is tool call. Right, this is where MCPs came in,
Mm-hmm.
right, to give the agent access to. We said APIs are shit; they're old. We're going to create MCPs, and there's a whole ecosystem about MCPs now. And then we have skills. Someone's come up and said, you know what, we don't really need MCPs because they consume a lot of tokens. We need skills because you can also specify what code needs to run from the skills file. So we have these all within like the tool call side. And then lastly, we have orchestration, right? How do we get agents to orchestrate all these bits together, call tools, handle authentication, and also manage other sub agents, right? So he's like, yeah, he sees agent experience being split into these four because these are like the bits that models care about. And I thought, I think this is fascinating. At least so far, the problems that are being solved fall within one of these one of these groups. What are you? Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think this makes sense, or or there's something missing?
No, I think it's a really good concept, and I think you can even come out with like fifth or sixth, field. And I think it's even real and possible to set the standards, but there is one prerequisite that is currently not stable: the development of like underlying AI, like the AI itself, like basically the whole structure and the concept of the whole AI underneath is changing. So you can really build standard for, let's say, overlaying structures, because yeah, maybe the diffusion models, I don't know, next day won't need that bunch of context. They will just need like one third, and they can learn. You don't need to provide the LLMs full to just like have fill the context with one request, but you will need, I don't know, have the, let's say, specific uh, types of semantics or specific types of context for that. So it's very, very hard to, basically design the boat when the engines are changing every other week. So it's really, this is really hard from, let's say, conceptual point of view, and nobody can really affect it, because yeah, we can really stop AI from developing. And once we
Mhm.
decide on some standards, and if it doesn't work anymore, yeah, we will just choose another one. So yeah, I definitely agree with some conceptualization, and I think it's very, very interesting to, or important to do. But there is one thing that came in my mind when you were describing these things. When I started with content management systems, there was, and I don't know how old it is, but there is a definition of all of the entities called schema.org. It's basically a domain model where you can describe basically any object in JSON. That's it. So if you have any business case, or if you're a construction company even, or you are building, I don't know, you are manufacturing companies, you can decide and you can describe the things that you are doing in this JSON. It's horrible, hard to describe. It's very, very bad to work with. But for example, the what's the name, the graph definition of the websites are coming out of this schema org, and you can describe your article, your page, your product. Of course, you probably
Mhm.
want to describe the whole home on your website, or have it as the digital asset. But I think this is still something that gives things semantics. And even for web, which is there for like, I don't know, 2 decades, three, it's still
Mhm.
not set in stone, and nobody is using it in a full extent. So I think once we find the use cases that are actually working, and let's say the development of AI will stabilize a little bit, the engine will be set in stone a little bit, or at least the structure of it, we can start building, let's say, more rigid, not rigid, more stable infrastructure above that, and start to define these standards. Up until now, we will just play with all of the things. We will generate them idly from one source of truth, and we will try 5 6 things, and we will see which one works the best, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Um, a lot is changing. Uh, I'm curious, what is static for you at the moment? I don't know if you're building any, or you're considering the tools that you build and how agents will interact with them, like how they'll be used.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people are thinking about that now, at least. But if you are, how do you envision giving agents the best experience on the product at the moment? So, what's your current setup? I guess that's my question,
Yeah,
right? Even though
yeah.
there's a lot of dynamism, what's static for you at the moment?
Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to be old school, and I have been building and I call it open source checklist or open source guidelines. And it's basically a set of things that you should do when you are providing a repository. I know that I'm still talking about the repository, but you can think of it as the product or the tool that you are providing. But have the
Mhm.
README in the specific form, like title, description, have the screenshot, then have the getting started from the user persona. Then you can have development.md, which is another file which is well known in the open source company, where you explain how to run the development environment. Then you have the
Mhm.
contributing.md, which describes how you should contribute, what you should do. Of course, there is no information like fork this repo and so on and so forth. So maybe for agents, we should extend it a little bit. But you have these, let's say, old school rules for humans, how they can get to the open source or repository standards. I know GitHub is calling it community standards at first, and then you have a lot of meta files for that. Like if you are submitting an issue, you can have question, bug report, and other types. So I have some that I already predefined, which work the best as the starter. And once you start building these, you are already providing the semantics. You have the, let's say, the struct or informational model, and then if you really want to, you can create the open cloud agent with all of these information, for example, and put them into his structure of files of this soul and behavior and so on and so forth. So we are just basically you're just basically moving the things around. So for me, I'm trying to
Mhm.
stick with the things that worked for me before, and just trying to adapt it to different channel, not just for the people. Does it make
That's
sense?
interesting there. Yeah, that's interesting there because I mean we don't know what the future would look like, but if we learn from the past, we can always take the things that we know have worked really well and try to give an agent access to all these tools in the way that we know this has worked, like humans. And we're hoping agents behave like humans, but faster and better, right? So I guess what I'm getting from this is you need to know what's worked, which to your point at the start was having a great product, having great content, having great documentation to explain these and just being out there. So getting like a lot of citations and feeding all these some in some way, whatever the new way is, to an
Hmm.
agent, and they can use this, and eventually the agent experience would be would be great. And this actually follows a pattern that we've been seeing. For instance, with AI search, that the way we've been able to show up in search, whatever you want to call it, like search instances for LLMs. So on Google
Mhm.
search, for instance, the AI overviews has just been to create great content and optimize it for SEO and get it in everywhere else, right? So put it on Reddit, get it on LinkedIn, get it on Twitter, get it in certain like open forums, and this gets the content to show up in AI overviews. So it's nothing new. It's just doing like the old thing really, really well. And these agents that are built to mimic like human behavior uh pick them up as well. But well, I'm still waiting for like the model providers to give us like a standard, because I have I have a thesis that the standards will come from them, and it will be easier for everyone to
Yeah.
to adopt that way. But yeah, so I guess the if you were to decide what a metric for great agent experience would look like, do you think it would still be time to integration, but this time around for the agent, or would it shift to something else around maybe accuracy or correctness? And with AI, we've always had recall and precision. Do these
Mhm.
become the new standards for agent implementation, or is it still time integration the old way? What do you think?
I'm a little bit biased for my, current tenure because we are providing the developer component. We are not providing the end product. So for me, the let's say first success is integrating it into the application. So that's what I currently have in my head as the goal. And for the agents, yeah, you need to first pick the goal and then just test it out, right? Just go to Claude and write it down, and if it gets right, uh, and it depends how quickly you get it, but if it gets it right for the first shot and it's quick, I think we are good. And you can just set up the recursion tests or the regression tests, sorry, to test it out throughout the time, and then yeah, you will see what it look like. So I think this is still pretty much the same. So basically, what you said, use the old one, but just aim it for the new technology. But the second thing also is when you are providing the AI tools, not providing your tools to the AI, but you are providing some AI capabilities throughout your product. I think you should be very conservative in there. For example, with CK, we have the real-time collaboration. So you have this editor and multiple people are working on the content. And now when we introduce CK Editor AI, which is just connecting, it's not just connecting it, but we have predefined flows for editors. You don't really get to see it, right? Because if you are providing the AI capabilities, it should be like another human just marked as like, hey, this was generated by the AI, and it shouldn't be very disturbing from the experience. And the second thing that when you're providing the AI throughout your product or tool, you should, and I think this is still important to keep, you should still keep humans accountable. So if some AI will suggest you this change, you should be as a human with your name or your login or your identification, you should be able to either decline it or accept it. So for this, I think this is also my matrix from the user's point of view, because when we are providing the AI capabilities, for me, it's how quick is to accommodate AI capabilities in the product. It's not like you need to be a prompt engineer. You don't need to know all about agentic stuff, right? If you are, I don't know, knowledge worker working in a bank, you know how to do the financial analysis, how to, find money here and there, and how to save or spend less money. Um, you do you. And if you are using SEM AI, you shouldn't be forced to learn the prompt engineering or how to write down the agents.md. You should still be able to work with the system that you had before, just enhanced with AI. So I hope that with these
Hmm.
standards we will be able to provide this level of services on this quality of the services, so that people don't find the under the hood bits and pieces.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Change is difficult, right? People, it's hard to adopt something entirely new. So just making sure there's consistency with an expected experience first.
Mhm.
I think that's a great indication of like great agent experience. And we can see like with ChatGPT, it didn't try to reinvent the user interface. It just went with the chat, which is something everyone use at least once a day. So
Yeah.
very consistent, like with an expected experience. So just making sure first the experience is consistent, at least for an end user to interact with it, um, and and I guess it's completeness for the agent as well, right? So the agent having the ability to do the same things under the hood, and the user just doesn't know. And there was one bit you mentioned around having authorization, like a guardrail to either like approve or deny whatever the agent has created, because ultimately you want to have a human in the loop. And I think great systems of people that have used agents in incredible ways always seem to mention this common denominator, which is you always want to have an approve or deny step um, with agents. You don't want to give it like free roam to get something into production, at least not just yet. I met an engineer last night. He's an iOS engineer with over a decade of experience working at like a top AI company, and
Mhm.
my mind's still blown till now. Because he said he hasn't written a line of code himself in the last 2 months, and he's been shipping like crazy. He just reviews pull requests. Actually, he doesn't really review pull requests ASAP. He said something I found very fascinating, which is he has two different code review agents go back and forth with each other on pull requests till they resolve the issue. So basically, a PR review agent reviews the code, sends the feedback to the the agent that handles like the development. The agent fixes it. PR reviewer does. They just go back and forth until
Mhm.
it's all resolved, and then he looks at it and it's like, oh, okay, this is great. Um, I also saw the folks from Cursor, like some dude at Cursor had a demo last night, and he demoed Cursor's background agent, and basically you can have Cursor now build out a feature and test it on the cloud in a dedicated computer. You see a video of the development. You see a video of like the feature, your user interface, right? It runs your repository on the cloud. I tried it with our project, and my mind was blown because it basically just used it as a person and sent me a video screenshot of the product. So I think about ways we could use this for QA. But then I saw like this person's editor at the meetup last night, like his Cursor Cloud agent, and he had
Mhm.
multiple models. So basically, he would have 6, 7 different models, but I guess they're Cursor, so they have unlimited budget, right? He would have
Yeah.
6, 7 models run the same task, and then he would pick which has like the more efficient diff, right? Like so for one task, he sees that one model had 28 additions and maybe two removals. Good. Then he sees another model that just has 6 additions, one removal. He goes and checks that one. He wants to write fewer lines of code. And for each one, there's also a video of the implementation so that he's sure the experience is consistent. CI checks pass, so like all the tests should pass, the build completes in a preview environment. And yeah, he fixed the bug that was on, that he mistakenly pushed the cursor a while ago. Same with security vulnerabilities. They have a cursor agent that's running every hour trying to find security vulnerabilities across their stack. And it was just It was amazing. It was amazing to see. But yeah, that was a lived experience that I just thought was fascinating as to how, to the extent folks now use agents, and how important it is that we're building for these future. Because right now they're probably just a select few, like I say, less than 1% of developers, and not just developers, but knowledge workers and professionals still leave this, or are living this like full agentic experience. And then think about what does the future look like
Oh,
when
yeah.
everyone's work is following a similar workflow.
Yeah. It's always crazy, and I always when I hear these approaches, it's overwhelming, right? It's very overwhelming for you because you need to comprehend a lot. And yeah, the and I
Hmm.
see if there is somebody who is very senior in and know the stuff how to develop it, he was slowed down by writing the code. And these are the exact person that people that will be super fast, because now they don't have the obstacle of thinking about stuff. They are basically just building the puzzle or the Lego all together. And we are just going to the, let's say, next level of abstraction, because now you don't need to write down the filtering to your website, right? It was done like
Hmm.
99 million times already. You just say, hey, do it this way. There are the concepts, this is the design pattern, and that's it. It will be already tested, it will be already implemented, it hopefully will have all of the extension point that you need. And yeah, we will have these building blocks that we will just build the applications. And if we the more code we will push, and the more code will be verified by actual usage, and we will have this, let's say, fine grain components. We'll be able to build the application even without code itself, right? We will then just build these node code solutions, which are already quite good enough. But for, let's say, more complicated and more custom setups, can be a little bit more difficult. So I hope that we will get to the stage that you can basically plug and play everything, and I hopefully one of these components will be CK editor, right?
Yeah, no, that's great. I hope so too. We're definitely getting towards that, more modular product, modular setups for products and features, so that consumption is so much easier and iteration is faster. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. Uh, the time just flew by, but this has been
Oh, we
a
are already in an
fantastic
hour.
conversation.
Good.
And yeah, it's crazy how time flies, especially when you're having fun. So thank you so much for coming on, and thanks to everyone else that stuck around to hear us rumble about developer experience and then agent experience and what that future could look like. Um, and if you want to find Andrea, I guess Twitter, LinkedIn is probably like the best place to find you. And for anyone looking at a smart editor option, check out CK Editor for sure.
Thanks, William. Thanks for
All right,
having me. It
people.
was great. It was great.
Yeah,
And see you around.
yeah. Thanks. Well, that's today's episode of Everything Outside Code, and I'll see you all on the next one. Cheers.